Man, Sean is a renaissance man. Not only does he draw, he builds. And so check out his latest invention. It's a sketch pinball machine. And the way the kids do it these days is based on time. So as long as you can keep the 3 balls, then it's all time. So check it out, guys.
Since it was your first work for DC, what does the JSA mean for you, and what do you find interesting about it?
Because they weren't the mainstream version of the characters, there was a possibility of things being a little different.
How did you feel about drawing the death of Earth 2 Batman?
You know, it didn't hit me as much as it should have. Everybody really wanted Joker and Batman to like die in a lightning storm on a bridge. So it was kind of like we avoided doing what everybody wanted.
I'm a huge Green Lantern fan.
Sure.
What was it about Gil Kane's art that made those covers so darn compelling?
Well, not to get too into the weeds, but I think to a certain extent, that was the first time that Gil had real confidence in his work. Because Gil's work was terrible for many, many years. He started very young, and someone has been posting a bunch of his stuff from the 40s into the very early 50s, and it's just terrible. And it's that work that begins to show what he's learned from Lou Fine and Mac Rayboy. You know, Fine on the B and the Ray at Quality, Rayboy on Captain Marvel Jr. at Fawcett. And those covers really do kick ass. They really do.
One of them.
I mean, in the same way that the 6 issues of Brave and Bold that Joe Kubert drew are canon of Hawkman, and there is no other version of the character that makes any sense to me. It's those issues of Green Lantern that Gil did that define the character in every way.
Yeah, still to this day, I think, in many ways.
Can you talk a little bit about the origin of Huntress?
The idea of Huntress being the daughter of Batman and Catwoman, that actually came from the colorist, Tony Collin. And my take on it was that there is, not to be obvious, but to have elements of the characters, the costumes, coming from each of the parents.
I'm going to shift gears a little bit. Your time in Hollywood, as a writer of comics prior, and then after you came back, and what changed in your view on how to be a comic creator? Did anything change?
Yes, to a certain extent, I relearned how to write working in television. To a certain extent, because I began to understand that I had to develop a stronger sense of standard of structure and organization and understanding of that, and that in television you deal with it in terms of time, in comics you deal with it in terms of space, and that I came to understand that in comics that time itself is represented by the use of space. And I began to reapply the techniques that I'd used to work in television, which is to say index cards for each scene, to comic book pages. And I came to understand that doing a comic book page was much smaller in terms of its volume and available real estate than one might have assumed previously. And that you could get all the information you needed for a comic book page on a single 3x5 index card with no real effort. And then I pin them up on a board. I don't number them until they're finished, because one of the things you find when you do this and use this technique is that frequently you can interpose one scene from another and still maintain the same effect.
How would something like American Flag be different after you've learned this technique with the cards? Would it be different?
Possibly.
Yeah.
It would have been more structured. I mean, I was still learning how to do what I do for a living when I was doing Flag. Flag was the first thing I did that was really worthy of any real merit, because it was a synergy of text and visuals, that I wasn't telling anybody anything of the story that wasn't being shown. that the pictures and narrative were in tandem and synergistic.
Last question. Crusty Bunkers. What does that make you think of?
A bunch of guys who saved my ass in my early career because I wasn't very good, and Neil Adams was the daddy of the crew, and he imposed a certain martial order of control and quality over the work. That's how those books were published. I mean, those guys made me look good. I sucked. I was
Heard you say you suck.
I did.
Yeah.
Trust me, because I have a massive ego. I mean, my ego has 2 zip codes. You know, what sounds like self-deprecation is actually acknowledgement of how brilliant I've become. And but they saved my ass.
Yeah. Would you ever consider covering that in Hey Kids Comics? Did you get that far into the Crusty?
That wasn't that interesting.
Yeah, I think everyone who is a comic fan should check out Hey Kids.
They haven't. The book, nobody. I mean, the very fact that I haven't had the shit kicked out of me as it indicates that nobody's read the book.
Maybe someday.
Thanks, man. Most great.
As you can see by the cons that you go to, you often see someone cosplaying Huntress.
Yes, I always love to get pictures with Huntresses. Yes, sometimes embarrassing as Huntress, come back, let me get your picture.